Kathy, it's common sense for a wife to serve her husband, right? And it's natural to take care of your parents, isn't it? So, starting tomorrow, my parents will move in with us. If you don't like it, you can sleep outside. This is what my husband Richard said 3 days after he bought a house with a garden. He suddenly forced me to live with his parents, but he had unilaterally decided to buy the house with a garden in the first place. He threatened me to find a house and left all the procedures to me. He treated me like a slave, but I calmly told him, "Then I'll sleep in the garden from tonight. Don't regret it if I sleep with someone else." "What?" "There's no way I'll regret it. I don't care where or with whom you sleep. You're a useless dropout who can't do anything. I'm going to bed first, housekeeper." He spat out these words with a twisted laugh. His behavior was so vile that even the neighbor's dog started barking. He threatened the dog before going back inside. Though his words were so terrible they made me want to cover my ears, I smiled fearlessly at that moment. No regrets? What a fool who knows nothing. I already know everything, Richard. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I muttered to myself as I began to prepare. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of the shutters being opened. Richard seems to have started his day. However, while I heard the sound of the door opening, I didn't hear it close. He's probably standing by the window in stunned silence. And no wonder. There's a huge tent set up in the spacious garden. I peeked out from the half-opened entrance to check if Richard was at the window, then stepped outside. As soon as he saw me, his face twisted and he started cursing. "You're even more ridiculous than I thought, actually camping out here. It's almost refreshing in its stupidity. Oh, I'm the type of a person to stand by my words. Unlike you, who always speaks without thinking." When I responded provocatively, his expression vanished. A quiet anger filled the air. Usually, I'm obedient and never defiant, so this probably made him even angrier. Just as he opened his mouth to retaliate, the doorbell rang, perfectly timed. He clicked his tongue and went to check the intercom. It seemed his parents had arrived. I also went inside from the garden to welcome them. "Welcome. Come on in, Dad and Mom. You both came at the right time. Look at the garden. Kathy actually camped out there." Come on now, as much as Kathy is a country bumpkin, camping out makes her seem like she was born in the wrong era. Really, it's embarrassing with the neighbors watching. Ignoring a comfy bed to sleep on hard ground, what's she thinking? Their crude laughter echoed through the house. I'm used to this sight by now. It's not just Richard who treats me harshly. His parents also bully me whenever we meet. Leaving your husband inside to camp out, you're really a thoughtless wife. You did prepare clothes for Richard before sleeping, right? Mom, if Kathy were that considerate, we wouldn't hate her this much, would we? We'd have welcomed her into the family and treated her well. Expecting common sense from her now is pointless. Exactly. She's a hopeless failure. As a woman and a wife, she's half-baked. But don't worry, I'm perfect to make up for it. His parents nodded vigorously, as if to say, that's our son. There's a reason why these three call me a failure. The truth is, my family is full of elite individuals running a company, except for me. My parents and my brother, Sean, run an outdoor company overseas, and my sister, Sarah, manages its Japanese branch. I was the only one without a notable career, and the three of them had belittled me since we got married. Even so, thanks to my family, I loved camping and frequently went to the mountains when I was younger. That's why I owned a large tent that could occupy the entire yard. Phew. I'm thirsty after getting excited over something so silly this morning. Absolutely. Our precious time has been wasted by this useless wife. Why don't we have her make some tea then? Kathy, go back and start preparing. Dad and Mom, let's head inside. It's still chilly in the mornings and evenings, and we'll catch a cold if we stay out here too long. They turned back, but then they heard a noise from the tent, and Richard turned around first. He immediately screamed loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. No! Help me! His parents, who were about to enter the house, stopped and looked back. What? 2 Dobermans here? What's going on? Were they hiding in the tent? Just help me, please! Richard was trembling, sandwiched between the 2 Dobermans, almost ready to cry. I couldn't help but laugh at how pathetic he looked. Richard is terrified of dogs. Apparently, when he was a kid, a dog he had forgotten to leash ran into the road and died. Since then, he claimed to see the dog's spirit. The spirit always haunted him, turning into a trauma. I have no psychic abilities, so when I first heard the story, I was skeptical. But because the man I loved trusted me enough to tell me, I had no choice but to believe him and support him wholeheartedly. However, now that I've lost my love for him, his trauma is nothing but a tool for revenge. Seeing him scared gives me a sense of satisfaction. Of course, his parents, who still deeply love their son, don't feel the same way. Kathy, why are there scary Dobermans in the garden of this house? That's right. You know Richard is afraid of dogs. Did you bring them here just to scare him? If so, you won't get away with this. His parents started yelling at me, but I remained unfazed and countered. Dad, Mom, don't misunderstand. I told Richard beforehand, didn't I? I warned him not to regret who I sleep with. In these dangerous times, it's only natural to have protection if a woman is spending the night outside alone, right? What kind of nonsense is that? You're an insolent woman. You're a failure as a wife. Dear. We need to help Richard now, never mind that woman. Get away from him, you dogs. While we argued, the Dobermans steadily closed in on Richard, who had now sat on the ground, hugging his knees and sobbing. I didn't expect this to be so effective. I regretted not getting a dog sooner. His parents tried to shoo the Dobermans away but were instead intimidated and backed off. Richard, tears and snot running down his face, looked at me. Hurry! Do something about these dogs. I'm going to wet myself. Oh, it's fine. We're in the garden. You can wash your clothes afterward. Don't be embarrassed by a little fear. Just show me your true self. Kathy! What are you talking about? I won't allow my precious Richard to be humiliated like this. That's right. It's shameful for a grown man to be in this situation in the garden. Get rid of those dogs and help Richard now. Richard's eyes, as well as his parents, were gradually becoming bloodshot. Half of them couldn't stand seeing their precious son terrified. The other half were embarrassed by the commotion in the garden, disturbing the neighbors so early in the morning. Passers-by had been glancing our way repeatedly. If Richard made a mess in his pants, it would make it difficult for his parents to maintain good relations with the neighbors they were about to live with. That's why I took my time. Wait, didn't Richard clearly say last night that he wouldn't regret it? Was that a lie? It's odd for an adult to promise something they can't do. You don't think you can get away with this. Just because you hit my weak spot, you think you're so clever. You're a failure who can't even do a decent job or serve me properly. You only seem competent because you have me as your husband. If we divorce, you'll be a nobody, just a loser. Now get rid of those dogs. The more insults he hurled, the more my smile deepened. Richard still hadn't realized where my confidence was coming from. It was time to enlighten him, so I pointed towards the tent. I see. So that's how you really feel. Good to know. For me and for them. Them? Richard looked towards the tent, puzzled, and people started emerging from it. 1, 2, 3. Seeing their faces, both Richard and his parents were stunned. Because they recognized every face. Let me reintroduce them. My parents and my brother. What? What? Why are they here? Yes, aren't they supposed to live overseas? That's what we heard, right? Indeed, not only have they returned, but they've appeared in our garden. I don't understand a thing. The three were utterly confused. But my parents and Sean were remarkably calm. They smiled without saying a word, which was even more terrifying. With a signal from my father, the Dobermans returned to him. Of course, the dogs were our family pets. Hello, it's been a while. Nice to see you again, Dad, Mom, and Sean. It's a lovely day, isn't it? So, what brings you here today? Richard and his parents cautiously asked about the situation, and my parents and Sean nodded to each other. Well, we have some important business, don't we, dear? Yes, that's right. We decided to return suddenly. I'm sorry for surprising everyone. Well, you'll be even more surprised now. By the way, I'm sure you understand, but we heard everything from inside the tent. When my brother announced this in a lower octave, Richard and his parents immediately looked away. No, it's just that we were a bit upset earlier, you see. That's right. We were just taken aback by how scared our son was, weren't we, dear? Of course. We think of Kathy as our own daughter. She's truly a wonderful woman, too good for our son. The three of them began making excuses, but my brother and parents remained with cold smiles. There's a reason they were so flustered and wary of my parents and brother. In fact, Richard's company has a business relationship with the company my parents and brother run. Our marriage was initially arranged because of the business connection. Is that so? I thought I heard something about my daughter being a failure. Yes, I heard someone call her a bad wife. They also called her a half-wit, even though we raised her with such care. Are you saying our parenting was to blame? She was also called a country bumpkin. Does that mean I'm a country bumpkin too? After all, I raised her in the same environment. We thought Richard was a good business partner, but we didn't know he had such people around him. We even discussed how it would be safe to leave Kathy with him, and this is the result. My parents and brother laughed heartily, while Richard and his parents' faces darkened. Just watching this made me feel satisfied. Oh, I'm glad you finally know Richard's true nature, Dad. At first, I didn't notice either. Everyone was so kind to me. But after you, Mom, and Sean went overseas, everything changed. They started bullying me as soon as there was no one to watch. Richard hastily tried to counter my confession. That's not true, Kathy. We've always been a loving couple. We've respected and cared for each other. Do you remember the first day we met? I fell in love with you at first sight. You were so dazzling. Have you forgotten those days of love? Love? You were just using me to gain a business advantage, weren't you? I know everything now. That's why I decided to get revenge. I need to return the hurt I received. Isn't that fair? Richard and his parents felt the silent pressure from my smile and took a step back. Even so, Richard gathered his courage to deny my accusations. No! You're mistaken, Kathy! I didn't marry you for business. That's just how things turned out. I married you because I loved you. Love brought us to where we are now. Funny how you suddenly start talking about love. I've never heard you say that word since we got married. It's hard to believe you love me now. I was embarrassed. There are things you feel but can't say, right? For me, whispering love was one of those things. Richard raised his fist and passionately explained himself. He was so earnest that he was sweating profusely. Amused, I decided to exaggerate my lament. But instead of whispering love, you've thrown countless insults my way. If you truly love me, what were those words about? Those insults came out of embarrassment. Haven't you heard of wanting to tease someone you like? That's exactly it. Kathy, you're the person I love most. Really? How much do you love me? More than I can hold with both hands. More than the high mountain, no, more than everything on earth. I love you more than anything in the world. Richard's shout seemed to echo through the room. His face was beet red, and he was breathing heavily, but everyone else was frozen like statues. Their gazes toward him were cold. My brother, the first to regain his composure, made a reasonable comment. Are you in elementary school? That excuse is just silly. Couldn't you come up with something better? Everyone except Richard nodded in agreement. My parents hesitantly started to speak. Well, we heard your family's true feelings inside the tent, and we decided to side with Kathy no matter what counterarguments came. Regardless of that, we strongly feel that we can't leave our daughter here anymore. What? Why? Richard looked genuinely incredulous, causing everyone else to let out a big sigh. My brother, with an exasperated expression, explained. Just think about it. An adult saying they bully someone because they like them is just pathetic. It's only excusable when a child can't control their feelings. When an adult does it, it's an instant deal breaker. No way! Richard seemed genuinely shocked. It was strange, had he always been this blindly deluded? Perhaps I had also misjudged him as a person. Anyway, this just added to the reasons for our divorce. Even as his mother, I feel like disowning him. If only I could turn back time. Maybe if we open that drawer over there, a cat-shaped robot will pop out? We need some handy futuristic gadgets. Even his parents were escaping reality. Richard was truly something else. But he wasn't one to give up easily. Wait. If you're claiming I married Kathy for business reasons, show me proof. I won't be convinced with just words. Fine. They must be tired of waiting. Let's bring out the evidence. What? What do you mean? Ignoring Richard's bewildered expression, I pointed to the tent again. Then my sister, Sarah, emerged from it. Her face was pale, and she was trembling so much that she couldn't come out quickly. What? Even Sarah is here? Why didn't she come out earlier? Oh no, why? Richard's parents were genuinely surprised, but Richard himself was just as pale as my sister. As the heavy silence settled again, my parents finally revealed the real reason for their sudden return. The truth is, we came back urgently because we received information that our daughter, Sarah, was involved in some misconduct at the company. We returned home as quickly as possible to verify it. I see. That must have been tough. We sympathize. But then, how does Sarah's appearance prove the marriage was for business reasons? While Richard's parents accepted my parents' explanation, they had new doubts. Richard, meanwhile, was clearly nervous and sweating. I smiled smugly. It was finally time to reveal the truth Richard had been hiding. The stage was perfectly set. Well, you see, Mom, it's because my husband is having an affair with my sister, Sarah. What? What do you mean? He's married to Kathy. Our son? That's impossible. Richard's parents looked at him, but he just hung his head and stared at the ground. His demeanor spoke volumes about the truth. Richard's mother collapsed on the spot. Is there no mistake? Could it be a misunderstanding or something in a gray area? Unfortunately, Dad, I have already secured evidence of their affair and reported it to my parents and brother. No way. Finally, Richard's father also collapsed to the ground. But I continued without mercy. I had prepared for this day for a long time. Even though there was no love left, gathering evidence of my husband's infidelity, photos and messages, was mentally exhausting. But I managed because I knew I would eventually divorce him and claim alimony. I couldn't back down now. Sarah's misconduct at the company is also related to the affair. Richard was blackmailing her. He treated not only me but also Sarah like a slave. Richard's parents were completely devastated. But my parents and brother stood firmly in front of them to deliver the final blow. We had suspected your true nature for a while. Kathy didn't say anything to us, probably to avoid worrying us, but it was clear she wasn't happy. We are her parents. We can tell a lot from her gestures and expressions. We knew this day would come sooner or later. We are canceling all business deals with Richard's company. We cannot maintain this relationship any longer. Following my parents and brother, I firmly voiced my own decision. Had I been alone, my voice might have trembled more. I'm divorcing Richard. I will claim alimony through my lawyer, so be prepared. I will never forgive any of you. Surrounded and pressured from all sides, Richard's parents had no energy left to argue. Sitting on the ground, they straightened up and bowed deeply. We deeply apologize for hurting your precious daughter. We understand the irreparable damage we've caused. But please reconsider canceling the business deals. I've heard that your company is a major client of Richard's company. If it gets out that the deals were cancelled because of us, who knows what will happen to Richard? Richard's parents tearfully pleaded, but my parents and brother firmly refused. If only you had given even a tenth of this concern to Kathy. Just as you are there for Richard, we are here for Kathy. Didn't you realize that a wife is a cherished daughter of another family, not a slave? We won't forgive you either. Richard's affair is his own wrongdoing. But the fact that he has such a mindset is due to his parents' failure to instill proper ethics. I would never engage in such immoral behavior because it clearly hurts not just oneself but those around them. Faced with these harsh truths, Richard's parents were rendered speechless and could only mutter, "We're sorry." Surprisingly, Richard alone maintained an entirely opposite attitude. "Really, Dad and Mom? Bowing your heads so much is just pathetic. It doesn't matter. The marriage wasn't for business reasons." Richard, are you still making excuses at this point? It's not an excuse. I married Kathy to make her my slave. She's the only failure in an elite family. How would she react if someone suddenly treated her kindly? She'd depend on them, obviously. I'd gain her trust, use her, then discard her when I'm done. Simple as that. Richard, you're a truly horrible person. I clenched my fists tightly, holding back tears. I didn't want to show any weakness to this man. Indeed, I was the only one in my family with just a high school diploma and often ridiculed. Though my parents and brother supported me, even my sister secretly looked down on me. That must be why she got along with Richard. My parents' and brother's faces turned red with anger at his words. What kind of man are you? I'm ashamed I ever acknowledged you as Kathy's husband. Don't you know the difference between right and wrong? If you say one more bad thing about my sister, I won't let it slide. Go ahead. I'm not at fault. It's my parents' fault for raising me this way. I'm already highly regarded at my company. Losing your company's deals won't cause any problems. A failure of a woman and her family are like bugs to me. I'll gladly divorce and pay alimony. I trembled with rage. I couldn't stand him insulting not only me but also my family. But I restrained the urge to attack him, knowing that resorting to force would put me at a disadvantage. I focused on the pain of my nails digging into my palms to maintain my composure. Once I got past the peak of my anger, I silently pointed at the tent again. What? Is there someone else? Richard, wary of the third surprise, peeked into the tent himself. There's no one here? He seemed relieved but quickly noticed something else. Hey, why is there a camera in the tent? We had been secretly recording him since he first checked the garden in the morning. Realizing that we had the perfect evidence, Richard quickly changed his tone and begged on his knees. Please! Don't let this get out to the company. I'll pay more than the usual alimony. Well, your tune has changed. You were so confident a moment ago. But sorry, I can't grant your request. This camera isn't for recording, it's for live streaming. What? Live streaming where? Of course, it's your company's president. In fact, I had consulted my parents beforehand and contacted my husband's company president. At this very moment, the president was watching the scene in our garden live. No, no, no! This can't be happening! Realizing there was no escape, Richard screamed and lunged at me. At that moment, the two Dobermans leaped on him, pinning him to the ground. Help me! No, I don't want to be ruined! Dad, Mom! Someone help me! Richard desperately reached out to his parents, but they quietly distanced themselves from him, shocked by his behavior. His hand grasped at the air before falling limply to the ground. After that, my divorce from Richard was finalized smoothly. I was finally freed from being a slave. Sometime later, one day out of the blue, I got a call from my ex-husband. The sheer number of missed calls on my phone showed how panicked he was. Of course, I had a good idea why he was calling. Smiling, I answered in a cheerful voice. "Hello? Long time no see. What's up?"
What's up? This house is infested with ghosts. They're everywhere.
Really? I had no idea. That's shocking. I feigned surprise to anger him, but of course, I knew the house he purchased was haunted. When Richard dumped the house search on me, I had already decided to get a divorce, so I decided to use the house search for revenge. Relying on rumors and online information, I searched exclusively for stigmatized properties and found the perfect house for Richard and his family. Since I can't see ghosts, my claim of ignorance wasn't entirely false.
Do something. I can't sleep with all these eyes on me.
That sounds tough. Are they around all the time? Must be earthbound spirits or something. Amused by my ex-husband's near tears, I pretended to be oblivious. He was too terrified to get angry, only complaining bitterly. With his strong sensitivity to spirits, Richard was traumatized by seeing the ghost of his childhood dog. I figured a stigmatized property would be full of spirits related to its history, making it perfect for revenge. It worked even better than I expected. Dad and Mom are having trouble too. They always feel like they're being watched and can't relax. What? Really? I didn't expect that. Apparently, his parents also had strong spiritual sensitivity. So, Richard's ability was inherited. Well, it didn't matter to me anymore. I did find the house, but you were the one who decided on it in the end, right? If you don't like it, get it cleansed or move. Handle it yourself. Wait, hold on. I hung up without waiting for his response and immediately blocked his number. This was the last connection I had with Richard's family. Afterward, I heard that Richard couldn't endure the presence of the spirits and put the house up for sale. The live stream incident at his company caused significant issues, leading to his forced resignation. Richard's misdeeds became widely known in the industry, and he still hasn't found another job. As for my sister, despite being blackmailed, she was still responsible for the misconduct and had to resign. She's also facing a lawsuit for damages due to her actions. She managed to pay the alimony for the affair from her savings, but couldn't cover the damages, so she borrowed money from our parents. Now, under their and my brother's supervision, she's working part-time to repay the debt. Meanwhile, I moved into a new place suitable for a single person. My parents' Dobermans had puppies, so I took one and live with it now. While it's true that Richard's infidelity was wrong, I also believe my submissiveness contributed to being treated like a slave. I realized I needed to become stronger, so I started learning karate. Though I primarily want to strengthen my inner self, physical training has its benefits too. For now, I'm done with marriage. I'm content enjoying peaceful days with my beloved dog.